Hello my lovelies, I've got a wonderful Serum patch for you guys today. A bit of a neurofunk, groovy, neuro-y, drum and bassy kind of rhythm. Let's have a little listen to what we got going on and then I'll break down the sound design. Alright, there we have it. And on the processing, I just did a little bit of mid-side EQing, controlling the low-end stereo of the bass, and similar on the drums, just got a random drum break out of a pack here, and I put a bit of sidechaining on from the kick as well. Let that kick come through the bass a bit more. But now I'm going to turn off the effects on the patch so we can analyse it in isolation. And yeah, Serum 2, baby, let's go. I've used a lot of effects because I've got to get the sound qualities to be perfect. But we'll mute those one by one, and we'll start off with the very simple and basic oscillator section. Well, is it that simple? I don't know. We've got noise, we've got a filter, we're running only 2 oscillators and a sub. That's all we really needed. We got some modulation, some FM going on between things, quite important. Couple of the oscillators and the sub actually being used as carrier signals, where the level's actually been pretty much turned off. Just this one has 1% of volume, but the sub is off. But we're using both those oscillators to route into oscillator A, which is going to be our main oscillator, right? We've also got 2 LFOs. We've got one LFO doing the main rhythm, and we've got a second LFO controlling the phase of the first LFO to create changes in the rhythm. Yeah, so an LFO sandwich. So yeah, let's start off then with oscillator A. So here I've just gone for a triangle. Yeah, triangle wave on the basic shape, on the default shapes here. Yeah, turn the randomization off. We're down -2 octaves, so nice and low. It's basically our sub at this point. Slight bit of detuning here, and yeah, we got to start adding in the next oscillators here. So let's add in oscillator B here. So this one is actually then, as I mentioned, it's turned off. It's just at 1%, so you can barely hear it. And this one is a sine wave. Okay. 1 octave higher than the triangle. So it would sound like that if it was on, right? But it's off, and I'm FMing from B here. And so my FM is pretty much actually almost turned off as well, and it's coming up and down on my main LFO here, this LFO 1. Okay, so if I exaggerate that a bit more, you'll hear it, but it's subtle, you know? And also, what's subtle is the sub coming in here as well on the FM. So again, if I turn that up, it's very subtle again. It only comes up around 14%. The first one also around 14%. The sub is actually turned off and the octave is left at 0, so it's actually not really a sub. I'm FMing like a higher pitched sine wave into this oscillator here. This is all going to make sense in a minute when I turn on the distortion, okay? The noise here as well, I have used that, and I've also left the level down almost at 0. But this is being used as a carrier to come into oscillator B, which remember is going into oscillator A. But it's very hard to tell, but you can actually hear there's a tiny bit of extra high end by running the noise through there. If I turn this up, you hear it a lot clearer here. But remember, because it's turned down and it's being basically only used as a carrier into oscillator A, you only hear the noise when this warp here gets to the top. So if I turn it up more, You hear the noise coming in now, you know, but you'll only hear it a tiny bit in the mix. It's there though. It's important that it's there, because once we distort things, which we can do now, then everything becomes clearer. Right, so I've used a big distortion on everything to start with, right? Let's go back and just check. Yeah, we got to discuss the filter as well. We'll turn the filter on quickly. Important to get that neurofunk sound now is to use the notch filters, right? Very important. So it starts off around 430 hertz, and it goes back to the left about 24% on my LFO movement, and the drive is turned up quite nice and high because the filters sound much nicer when you drive them up. I would actually argue that the filter drives are almost better than the distortion settings in Serum, but they're very good though. So filter drive nice and high, and that's wobbing around on my LFO here. And you can just see what I've done on LFO2, right? This is how the two lines, because I've used the smooth mode here, which is really nice actually in Serum 2. It displays the smoother version of what I've drawn. So basically I've drawn something like a child, and the adults come along and made and tidied it up for me. And then, why is that alarm going off? I think that was someone else's alarm. Weird. So, as I was saying, LFO2 is controlling the phase of LFO1. Okay, and what does that mean? It means that LFO1 is normally doing this and repeating itself, but when LFO2 changes, suddenly LFO1 will skip to a different part and it will change the rhythm, right? So if I didn't have it on, see, I've drawn where I want the changes to be, and I've done that to the beat specifically. Yeah, it's important that I've done that sound designed in that while listening to the beat, my G's, okay, to get the funky rhythm going. So for this kind of thing, get your beat laid down and design the bass around it, you know. But yeah, next up, what I got to tell you is what would it be like? So let me just copy to make sure I haven't lost anything. But you know, if I obviously didn't have that LFO2 modulating everything, if I just put it on a flat 0, then it's just LFO1 constantly repeating, you know. But by having this these settings here where the phase position is being changed, obviously, it picks a new point in the rhythm sort of halfway through it, and then that causes me to get these new, like, sort of random funky offbeats, you know. You can see in the way that the line is skipping around, when the LFO2 is modulating the phase, it will like suddenly restart before it's got to the end, or it might sort of hang around at one spot for a little while. You see how it does that here. So it's not just going in a straight line, it's skipping back and forth a bit to change up my rhythm, you know. That's something I've always done on Vital for ages, but I haven't really done it in Serum so much because I've never really ever used Serum until about 7 days ago. All right, or never used it like for a long period of time. So continuing on, then, we pretty much got everything. Yeah, everything's running into that filter, into that notch. Everything's going in there. Funky movement set up. Yeah, we've got our sub and our oscillator B kind of being used in the warp section of oscillator A, and the only real output is coming from oscillator A. I've just left oscillator B to have a bit of bleed at 1%, and the noise has a bit of bleed at 2%, just for fun and a bit of extra high-end content. So anyway, that goes all then. Let me just make sure. A bit of detuning. Yeah, no randomization on these guys. I think I've discussed everything. Mono and legato section on down here in the voicing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously the LFO speeds, 1/4 dotted is my main one here, and the LFO2 is a 2 bar. It's important that it's longer so that I could have like I could keep that dotted rhythm going for a while, and then I can inject like changes into it on a longer time frame, not like so short. So the LFO2, which is sort of the carrier to the rhythm, is on a longer time horizon. You know, that's everything I think for the voicing section. So yeah, going on to the effects. Right, so the distortion, this is the main obviously thing I already discussed, the sign shaper. Everything we set up in terms of the FMs, you know, we use the FM rather than the phase distortion, rather than the PD here. Sometimes the FM seems a bit more aggressive, but yeah, we've used them both subtly. But the way that we've used them subtly is then it all comes to life when we put the sign shaper on. And the sign shaper has quite a high amount of movement on it, with the drive coming from 32, starting at 32% and going up another sort of 31% with the LFO. So the drive is on to begin with, but not so high, and then the LFO injects more drive along with our main rhythm, you know. And now when we track things to our LFOs, if we want the parameter to follow the main rhythm, we'll obviously track it to LFO1 because that's the master rhythm. But if we want like a separate thing to happen only during the change, which I do that in a bit later, then I can track something to LFO2 to exaggerate the change, right? But yeah, LFO1 driving up that distortion a bit more. All right, next add another filter in. This time, yeah, it's slightly, there we go. It's slightly lower in position, 52 Hertz. So remember my first one here, I put my notch in a bit, about 430. And then over here I've done it quite a lot lower, around 50. And this has got a bit of movement as well, but a bit less, 16%. Nice and high on the drive again. So really boosting the signal quite a lot. Really bringing out the mid-range quite a lot on the sound. Alright, next, one of my favourite features in Serum 2, definitely, the splitter. So stacking up some overdrive on the high end, around 861 Hertz and above. So yeah, the stack is on 3, because yeah, the stack gets really aggressive quickly. And so it's great if you really desperately want high end, then chuck on the overdrive and chuck on the stack and turn the stack up a couple of notches, and then drive up all your high end, or, you know, 1K and upwards, thereabouts, give or take. Drive all that up with your splitter on with the stacks on the overdrive. That's a great way to get massive high end straight away if you need it. If you've got a sound that's like a bit more low passed, like we kind of have here, you know, not so much high end content to begin with, then stack mode I think is great to add extra high end. Okay, so reintroducing a bit of extra buzz up at the top. Then, yeah, bunch more effects happening. Right, equalizer, taking out a bit of mid-range around 580. Subtle thing, don't have to do that on every patch, obviously. I'm not taking out the mud just because I was told to do it by a random YouTuber. The reason that I'm taking out the mud is to add definition and extra shape to the sound, because it sounded better with that, you know? It wouldn't have necessarily worked on every patch, but on this one, yeah, it fits the vibe of the sound a bit better. So yeah, next, Convolver. So yeah, love this one. This preset is my favorite. It doesn't work on every sound, but it works on 70 or 80% of them. So the short digital gated sounds fantastic. I honestly feel it sounds so good I don't bother messing with any of the settings. I just mix it in a bit, and here I've done 17%. Alright, so great bit of convo on there. Next bit of chorus. Here I've done something interesting as well, because I've modulated the low pass filter on the chorus. I really like this because it changes the character of the chorus quite nicely. Actually completely gives you like a sort of yeah, like a filter sweep kind of character through your chorus signal, which is great. So yeah, I've enjoyed modulating that around on my main LFO again, and then just but mixing it back to 23%. All right. Now here's where things get a little bit more complex. We're using the hyper and the dimension. So the hyper, I like this 40% of the time on sounds. This sound was one of the ones where it worked. And yeah, a bit of a kind of a unison detuned character added into the sound to make it more natural, but only around 10%, so quite subtle. This is more of a natural adjustment. But then the dimension, I've used this on LFO2, so where the change happens and the rhythm skips and the rhythm gets changed, I wanted to exaggerate that section, so I brought up the dimension to make the sound like wider at that point. Okay, can you barely hear that? So it does actually, that's how it sounds when it's all the way up, you know, but the modulation only brings it up just under halfway here. But it does, when I then turn on the flanger as well here below, which has the same setting. Yeah, we get a touch of flanging and a touch of width, extra width, during those sections where the change happens. That's really it, you know. Finally, 3 more bad boys, 1 big distortion on everything. And this is a big one. This really enhanced everything, and I've realised now that the distortion seems to work quite nicely on the tube mode, but it worked best for me when I had the drive all the way up to 100, and then I just mixed in the signal, and I've mixed this on my LFO1 again, so I'm reinforcing the groove, what I've already created, basically just by mixing in that tube distortion. From 0 up to, what are we, around 60%, so 0 to 60 following the main LFO pattern. So just, yeah, reinforcing everything with extra volume essentially and saturation. Reverb, so reverb's sounding pretty nice for me in Serum 2 so far. I tend to like the vintage setting or the whole setting the best. Size turned up a little bit, and then I've left all the low end and all the high end in for this one, but I've just put 12% on the mix. Alright, so just a little bit there. And then finally, a tiny little EQ boost for the high end. Actually, did I even bother using this in the end? I think I actually didn't. I seem to have turned it even down at the end, so basically we don't need to use that. It already sort of had enough high end in at that point. I sometimes just check with a high end boost at the end if it needs any more, but in this case it's pretty much good to go. So yeah, I've still got to label this one. What are we going to call it, guys? We're going to call it I love my subscribers. Yeah. Thank you guys for subscribing. Yes, that's the neurofunk bass today, and as I mentioned, yeah, with a bit of EQing, just to tame the sides and the low end, a bit of side chaining to my kick here again. Then we're ready to rock and roll with the beat again. But yeah, nice, tidy, tight neurofunk. Funky bass line with a lot of groove, funky neuro groove, made in Serum 2. As I have not put anywhere near as many hours into Serum as I have into Phase Plant or Vital, I hope that you guys will bear with me as I learn more and more about this synth as I go along. But thank you very much for watching today. That's it from me today. May I remind you as well, if you want preset packs for Vital or Phase Plant, I've got many in the links down below, and there's a brand new one out for Vital called Shadow Zone, which is excellent, the best Vital pack I've made so far, and that one's going to be on offer until the end of the week if you use the discount code Shadow Zone, all caps, all one word, and you'll get 20% off the new pack, Shadow Zone, or any other Vital pack on my website will also be 20% off with that discount code for the individual Vital packs only. All right. If you guys want to learn more about sound design and synthesis, or you want to just improve your mixdown techniques and work on a track together, then hit me up for lessons. Links for that are down below. You can book directly in, schedule yourself something into my calendar. I'll be happy to help you with that. Finally, if you also want to join my Discord community, you can do that via supporting me on Patreon. So you not only get to support my work and show your appreciation for what I do on YouTube, but you also get to become part of the vibrant Discord community that I have, and it's also where you'll be able to join in on all of our upcoming YouTube live streams, our feedback live streams, of which I organise on average one per month, and we'll do the next one in April. This year I'll say it now, I'm going to do one every single month, so there'll be one in April, one in May, one in June. You know what the months of the year are, don't you? Thank you anyway. Yeah, that's it from me today. More from me very soon. Peace out. Much love.